Okay, so my name is Milen Dyankov. I am indeed a developer advocate at Liferay, and my primary focus is backend, Java, OSGI stuff. And this is totally not what I'm going to be talking about here today. How many of you have heard of a thing called Wideploy? Show some hands. So pretty much everyone. Nice. So this is what I'm going to be talking about today, our new baby called Wideploy, which is the thing that we come up with to make developers' life easier, to make it easier and faster to deploy stuff in the cloud. And this talk is supposed to have 0 slides. It's a live demo. And as a speaker, because I do a lot of talks, one of the things that I always wanted to be able to do is to get on stage and just do a talk with 0 slides. Just get my hands on the keyboard and live code an application and deploy it in the cloud and show the audience that, hey, look, this is how you build stuff. And so Wideploy finally gave me that opportunity so I can actually do this in front of people. So I can actually build an application and deploy it in the cloud while I'm doing my talk. So let's try that. I guess you've seen that screen. That's the homepage of Wideploy. How many of you have been there already? Many of you? Okay, half of you. And of those of you that's been there, how many have an account on Wideploy? Okay, few people. So you should probably go ahead and create an account. There is a free plan, which is somewhere here. Tells you what you can do in that free plan, and if you need more, you can obviously do more. Now, obviously, I do have an account, so I'm just going to go, not going to show the front page, I'm just going to go ahead and log in. And that's what you're going to currently see if you try to do that. Now, that's a very important screen. It teaches you a few things. Now, first thing, it tells you that we have actually a status page where you can see what's the current status of Wideploy. And that's quite an important thing because if you think something's not working, you may really want to know what exactly is not working. And in this case, it tells you the console is not working. And it's not working not because it failed, but it's because under a scheduled maintenance. Now, that screen teaches you a few other important things. The first thing is using days of the week in communication. So when you say to your coworker, I'm going to have a talk on Wednesday, and they tell you, oh, no worries, we have a scheduled maintenance on Tuesday. One thing you need to make sure is that your Wednesday is not their Tuesday. And that's very important if you work in a company that's distributed all over the world. Now, the second thing this screen teaches you is something that maybe or you may or may not be aware of, which is called the fallacies of distributed computing. And my favorite one is always the first one, which says the network is reliable and topology does not change and things like that. And as you can see, we can experience this live. I'm trying to do a live demo, and the product that I'm going to live demo to you does not let me to. Okay, so what are we going to do about that? Well, it teaches you another important thing. Whether you do a talk or whether you build a software, you always have to have a backup plan. And I'm going to show you what my backup plan is, which is here. I have a version of a talk that does not really rely on a live demo. So, if you want to use mobile phones, laptops, tablets, or anything else during the talk, now that is your excuse. You can feel free to go ahead and do it. Go to that URL, talkback.wideploy.io, and you're going to see an application there. And that is one application that I was supposed to build live, but it's already there. And the reason I have this application is one other thing I always wanted to do as a speaker is to have the ability to get feedback from the audience that I'm talking to. So I said, well, what if I can make this app that they can just go online and rate my talk or send comments while I'm speaking. That would be nice. Then at the end of the talk, I can immediately see, yeah, they like that. They have these questions. I can answer that. So this is the application I built. It's called Talkback. And the URL again is talkbackwithDeploy.io. It is live. It's a real application. You can go there. And you're going to see this screen. So you need to log in, by the way, with either GitHub, I believe, or Google or something like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say I'm a speaker. And here is the talk that I'm giving today, From Zero to Production. That's for the Liferay Symposium. I'm saying I'm going to start this talk. When I start this talk, then you're going to have this talks. Oh, I see. Thanks, Javier. Yeah, you can rate Javier's talk as well. You can see talks already showing up in the attendee tab. And then you can click on a talk right here. And you're going to have this screen where you can rate the talk. You can say it was poor, it was an average talk, or I have a question, send comments. So while I'll talk to you and demo stuff, you can actually see how that works. And when I go to my talks here, I can actually see how people rate, which looks not too bad so far. Okay, good. So let's go back here. So this is the application that I was supposed to be building live, but I'm not going to be building it live, but you're still going to see how it was built. But before we do that, is a few words about the concept of WeDeploy, why it came to life, and what is it all about. So as you may know, Liferay has always been about open source. And years ago, when portals were as much as a buzzword as microservices are today, we actually showed up out of nowhere and presented people a solution that made developers' job easier using the tools that were popular at the time, which were portals, without having to pay the high price of the commercial solutions available out there, and at the same time, without sacrificing on the functionalities. So that's what made Liferay very, very popular, is you could do stuff easier, faster, and you could still have the same functionality that otherwise was either not available or much more expensive. And as you saw earlier today, things have changed in the last couple of years. We've been investing in a lot of different technologies. Liferay is no longer a single product company. It's not the portal, the only thing we do. As you can see in the slide, a lot of front-end engineering is going on. And WeDeploy is just one of the latest things that happened, which is kind of a way to actually serve all those people doing all those different things to get live and deploy their stuff in production easier and faster. And this is all about WeDeploy. It's about faster. It's about staying in control. It's about scaling, but more before everything else, it's not dealing with infrastructure. Someone else takes the care of the infrastructure for you. And now I also hear a lot of comments from people who have been doing back-end stuff for many, many years. They say, well, what's the big deal about infrastructure? For me, setting up a server or environment, installing a database, configuring all this stuff, it's not a big deal. I've done it like many, many times. How many of you are comfortable with doing that? Like yourself? No, okay. How many of you can do it? Okay, so that's the difference. When I say how many can do it, half of you raise your hands. When I say how many are comfortable with that, like, am I comfortable? It's not that people don't know how to do stuff. It's just the pain that you have to go. I know AWS very well. I can pretty much run everything on AWS, but every time I go to the AWS console to set up something simple, I'm like, oh, where am I supposed to click? If you feel that pain, well, imagine this from a perspective of a person who only does mobile apps or front-end apps, who hasn't had a lifetime experience with setting up clusters and back-end infrastructure. So that is the problem WeDeploy tries to solve. It tries to make it easier for people to get started. This is the application. the application is basically an HTML Polymer application, which is just some HTML and some JavaScript. And you can run it with this Polymer serve, and it's just going to run on your local host in your browser. Well, as you can see, it allows you to log in. It uses like a fake user, and there's nothing you can do. That's what you get out of the box. And when I was live coding this application, this is actually my step 0, right? Say a front-end engineer or actually a designer gave me the HTMLs. There's 0 functionality in it, just look and feel. But I want to try that out. I want to see how it looks. It doesn't do anything. So looks good to me. It's something that I can work with. Why it doesn't do anything? Because Polymer, the front-end technology that I'm using in this particular case, has this notion of behaviors. So to every visual component that you build, you can attach a behavior or different behaviors. And so this is my login behavior here. It's some lines of JavaScript. And as you can see, it has the method called the mock sign-in, which is basically faking the login process, logging you as some fake user. Well, there is also a behavior about storing the talks and storing the comments and getting them from a database and so forth. And all those are simply not implemented. That's just empty methods over there, which does nothing. And that is why this application doesn't do anything when you just run it. But how long, even that simple application, that static HTML application, how long does it take to get it on in the cloud? Well, I can go ahead and create a file, which is called wedeploy.json. And in that file, I'm just going to say, I want to host that thing. And my image is hosting, and it's called UI. So once I do this, I can actually go and build my application. Now, the reason I'm building this is because if you know front-end development and front-end build tools, there is a lot of stuff they download from internet for you to use, and you don't always want that. So I just want to build it to get rid of the stuff I don't want, and then I'm just going to say wedeploy and deploy it. It asks me to log in, and once I log in, it's going to deploy the application automatically. As you can see, it's already there. It's in the cloud. Now I can click on that icon, and I can see the logs, what's going on in the cloud, and that's it. I have my static HTML application with some JavaScripts in it in the cloud. It still doesn't do much. It's still the same stupid thing. It's still fake login. It still can't save anything. Well, let's fix that. So I'm just going to create a real behavior now in this folder called wedeploy. Obviously, I'm going to create it from a template. Don't expect me to type all that. And this is my real behavior. It's the actual login. And if you look inside that carefully, what it does is it talks to something that is at the auth-talkback.wedeploy.io. And that is my authentication service, whether you want to call it service, microservice, whatever. And so I'm going to use that thing, whatever that is, and I'm going to say to it, well, I want to be able to sign in with GitHub, and I want to be able to sign with Google. And when people choose to do these things, we'll just call that sign in with redirect method and provide the provider, either GitHub or Google in this particular case. And that's it. That's everything I had to do in order to get my login to work. Well, not everything actually, because now I need to change the behavior. I need to get rid of my mock behavior and actually enable my real behavior, which is done in this particular file. And I'm just going to repeat the same steps. I'm just going to build my application, which is going to take a while. And then I'm going to go to the folder where it's built, and I'm just going to say deploy and say the project name. And you will see on the activity screen that the project is actually being redeployed. And once it is done, see the green icon, I can go and I can reload the page, and I can now log in, except I can't. And the reason I can't is there is nothing on that URL, that magical URL that I said is going to be responsible for authentication. My authentication UI and the behavior of my UI is there, but there is no service that actually authenticates me. So how do I create that? Do I need to create a Java app and deploy it and create a RESTful services? Well, maybe there's an easy way. How about I just create a folder in here, call it Auth, and inside that folder, I'm going to just say, I want, we deployed a JSON file, which is my authentication container, and I'm just going to provide my GitHub and Google OAuth keys. And then I'm just going to deploy that thing. Just going to go to my Auth folder and run deploy again. What's going to happen is, you're going to see it in the deployment activity right now, another container just started, another service, which is called Auth. Now, if I go back to my application and reload it and click on sign with GitHub, you can see I'm signed in, and that's because I'm always signed in with GitHub. So that was it. I have now logging functionality in my application in very simple way, very easy. But I still can't save any talks. It's still the empty methods. So what about those? Do I need to install a database now, and then I need to install a backend service that talks to that database and exposes a RESTful interface to my HTML application? Well, maybe there's a better way. Let's go again to our behaviors and disable the mock behaviors, which we're going to comment out here, and enable some real behaviors, which we'll have to obviously implement in a second. So those are for saving talks and saving the comments. So here is the template for the real behaviors. And now let's look at those. Now, instead of doing nothing, my ready function is calling this other service called data talkback with deploy IO. And from that data, it selects the talks that are my talk or the person who's logged in and looking at the page, the talks that are relevant to that particular person. It also does things like watch. So basically it says, well, notify me every time something changes so I can refresh the view. And this is the very simple way, is just get me all the talks that are in progress and then just change the UI when this happens. So that is a very simple, rather, JavaScript that's going to update the UI when something in a database changes. But what about the database itself? Well, let's create one. Just going to create a folder data. And again, I'm just going to create a wedeploy.json file in it, in which I'm going to say, I want to have a place to store data. Think of that as NoSQL in the cloud. That's essentially what it is. And then there's another file, which is called api.json, in which you say, well, this is how I want to interact with that data service. So this is the /talks path, where I can only do gets. And there is also, again, /talks, but I can also do put, pause, delete, and patch, and so forth. You can now, the reason those two are separated is because you may want to apply a different security to different paths, right? And so, in different actions, right? So I may want to say, oh, get is available to everyone, but post, put, delete, and patch are only available under those terms and conditions. User is logged in, user is part of a group or whatever. So I'm able to, even though I'm not showing you here, to restrict access to particular URLs and particular actions on them. And that's pretty much it. Then again, I need to do two things now because I changed my UI. So I need to go and again build it with Polymer and then deploy it, which is something you've seen a couple of times already. And again, the same thing's going to happen. Deployment activity is going to reflect the change. Now, you may think about deployment activity as useless. It's not that useful if you are the only person changing the stuff. But if you have a team, then actually you can see who is doing what. And then you deploy your data service. And now we have 3 services already up and running. So in here, I can reload the page now. And when I go to the talk, I can actually type something in and add my talk. That's it. My storage in the cloud was done. So finally, you may notice that we use the prefixes like UI and data and stuff like that. Well, you don't always want to access your application like this. Sometimes you want to have a real domain. And this is what just happened there, is we went to the custom domain section of a particular service and say, well, I want that service to actually be available under a particular domain name. And this is why in the URL that you are accessing, it is talkback.wedeploy.io rather than UI-talkback.wedeploy.io. And if I had a custom domain registered with a domain provider, I could also use that my custom domain for the same thing. So I show you a very simple application, JavaScript, Polymer, not that fancy. But if you actually go to the WeDeploy GitHub account and search for demo, what you're going to see is, what is it, 31 at the time of this screenshot was taken, demo projects about stuff that you can do with WeDeploy. You can also deploy Java applications on WeDeploy. You can deploy anything that you can stuck in a Docker container. You can run, I don't know, WordPress on WeDeploy if you want to. You can run Liferay. You can run DXP. As a matter of fact, there is a DXP trial on WeDeploy. So it does not limit you to JavaScript and front-end and mobile apps. You can actually do a lot more things with that. So go ahead, experiment with that, and let us know what is it that you built and how can we help you with that. Let's see how we are doing here. Oh, okay, thanks. I'm looking for the red ones. Someone's promoting a YouTube video. Well, okay, no questions and no big disappointments. So with that, I'm gonna just thank you for being here with me. I apologize for not being able to actually do this live. But if you don't believe me, there is a recording of me doing this live. So actually, all I showed you can be done live during one talk. Thank you. And